I mentioned at the end of the last video that more and more as we study patterns of movement in a wide variety of animals in different media, different environments, with different kinds of bodies, and we recognize that there are some general principles that can help us to understand these movements as being lawful, regular. More and more the notion of control becomes inappropriate, and the notion of coordination in the presence of constraint becomes more useful. Constraining the many degrees of freedom of the body seems to be the right way to come at this, so that when the body interacts with the environment, a particular well-structured form of coordinated movement emerges. Every word there is important. So when we walk, we take this body that's capable of very many different kinds of movement, and we temporarily organize it into something simpler, something which serves the purpose of walking, something which is like a machine built for one purpose, a locomotion machine. And all the parts work together, non-independently. This is not what it's like to be a puppet. So when we walk, if we consider the body as being temporarily turned into a locomotion machine, that machine is task specific, is flexibly assembled, and it's more than just the brain or the brain and the muscles. It requires the entire body and the environment. And yet somehow it's simpler than the sum of its parts, because they're all working together towards a single goal. Now, in the study of movement, there's lots of ways to approach movement. We've got some branch of movement science called action theory, or another called coordination dynamics. There's a lot of jargon going around to express this simple idea. The locomotion machine, that is the body organized towards locomotion, can be described as a coordinative structure or a synergy. These are very fancy sounding words to express the simple fact that your body is capable of many things, but it continually moves from one form of simple organization to another form of simple organization. In the course of a day, you become a plucking machine, a picking machine, a scratching machine, a catching machine, scrubbing machines, and so on. There's an awful lot of jargon going around here to express what is a fairly simple idea. In the presence of the appropriate constraints, the parts of the body become coordinated and a global emergence pattern arises, the pattern of locomotion, for example. And that word emergence is doing a lot of work here, and I don't want you to believe it's like pixie dust that we just make things happen. This has a very specific meaning, and I'm going to illustrate it, try and bust some of this jargon with a nice visual example that will help you to remember what we're talking about. In each case, we're talking about a system that has multiple components which are subject to particular constraints, and in the presence of those constraints, a pattern emerges across the components. So, for example, under specific atmospheric conditions, those are the constraints, the air in the atmosphere self-organizes into what we call a tornado. Nobody designs it, nobody controls a tornado. It's emergent when you have a lot of energy in the system and you have the appropriate constraints. Then this is one of the patterns that can emerge. So here's a nice example featuring puppy dogs. Have a look at these dogs first. Now you know what you just saw. You saw a bunch of puppies, but you also saw the pinwheel. The puppies collectively have a lot of energy. They're very energetic components, and they're each capable of very many things. In the presence of an appropriate constraint, here the feeding dish, a pinwheel emerges. Nobody designs the pinwheel. The puppies know nothing of the pinwheel. It's an emergent pattern that arises when these energetic components are suitably constrained. That illustrates pretty much everything that was covered by those monstrous terms, coordinative structure and synergy.